Yes, you are.
Good. So I'm going to launch my MySQL workbench. So like I mentioned earlier, SQL or SQL was created to consume large amount of data, something like spreadsheets, sheet software like Microsoft Excel cannot handle. And basically what you do with it's aggregate function. You do a lot of aggregate function, something like sum, count, average, um, min, max. Those are what they call aggregate function. And the way it works is like your Excel. So if you want to create a file, if you want to create your Excel file, you create a workbook, right? And you save this workbook in a folder, or what they call local directory, which is called, your directory is your folder. So you can just say folder. Maybe in your video, your document, inside document, you put it in a folder. Then you then have your Excel workbook. Inside your Excel workbook, you have what? Your Excel worksheet, right? Then inside your Excel worksheet, you then have your table. So this is how Microsoft Excel works. For SQL, for SQL, you have what you call a server. Your server is where your files actually sit in. It can be online, it can be offline. That is, it can be on your PC or it can be on cloud. It contains different databases, and these databases, they have tables, and the tables have columns. Basically, that's how it works. Do you guys understand what I just explained? Any questions before we continue?
Yes.
Any questions? So Microsoft Excel, that you actually have a UI interface, um, a user interface. SQL, you have several interfaces they use to interact with this server. You have what they call PG admin for Postgres. So Postgres is also a, so we have different flavors of SQL. We have Postgres, we have Microsoft SQL Server, we have SQLite, we have mySQL. Now each of these, sorry, let me type this. Well, each of these flavor have like interfaces that you use to interact with their servers. For Postgres, you have pgadmin. For Microsoft SQL Server, you have SSMS. It's a management studio. I think SQL Server Management Studio. For MySQL, which we are going to use, we have MySQL Workbench. Then we have another flavor called SQLite. So either it's a SQL or SQL, SQLite, and you have like a, I think the one I know is they call DB browser, database browser. So you have interfaces like Microsoft Excel that you are using to interact with the server itself. Now, this is one thing I will tell you about SQL Server. Now, whatever you want to do is on your table, but you intentionally need to define what your table looks like. Let's say, for instance, I open my Microsoft Excel. Let me launch my Microsoft Excel. So this is my Microsoft Excel, right? This is the interface. Now, if I click on blank workbook, I have opened a new workbook, and this new workbook has created automatically a worksheet. Then I can now start entering my data, right? I can say, first of all, you need to specify your title of each of the column your data will fall. So say, for instance, if I say NSN, what are we expecting under SN? Is a question I need answer to. What are we expecting under S stroke N?
Numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
So as a data analyst, what you are expecting is numbers, whole numbers, right? Jessica, are you following? Good. You are expecting whole numbers, and that leads me to data types. The data type you're actually expecting are whole numbers, and they are called integers. So integers are positive or negative. Abraham, just mute your phone, mute your call. So integers are positive or negative whole numbers. So you're expecting to see 1, 2, 3, 4. What if I put 5.0? Does it make sense for me to put 5.0 there? Or 5.1? Does it make sense for me to put 5.1 there? It doesn't. And that's because you are actually expecting whole numbers that are either positive or negative, which is what you call integers. So you're actually expecting just 5, not 5.0, not, you understand? So say, for instance, my first name. Now, as I'm creating this particular title, this already they are called, you're already creating a column automatically, right? So my first name, last name, we have age. What data type should be age? Who can tell me what data type you think should be age? Who's gonna tell me that? I think I would stop my video. Jessica, you want to say something? Sorry? I didn't get what you said. Is it me, or is that I cannot hear you properly?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay, I said I didn't get your question, like what you asked.
I said for age, for instance, what data type should be on age? What data are you expecting on age? Did you get that? What input are you expecting to see on age?
It should be integers.
It should be integers or whole numbers, right? You are not expected to see. So somebody will say, I am 5.5 years. You are not expecting to see 5.5 years in age. It's either 5 or 6. Does that make sense? So you are expecting positive or negative whole numbers. So for name, what data type are you expected to see there? Who can tell me? For name, your first name, last name, what data type are you expected to see there?
Sir, the question again, please.
I said, what data type are you expected? What kind of data are you expected to see in name?
Letters, alphabet.
Okay, that should be strings like
Text,
alphabet.
alphabet, so text. So I'll say Khadija Sanusi. So first name Khadija, last name Sanusi, and I'll say Jessica. I don't know if this is her last name, but I'll just assume. Then I'll say Abraham Okeme. Let's just say Abraham is 10, Jessica is 60, and Khadija is 45. We are just saying. So these serial numbers, you're expecting to see whole numbers. First name, you're expected to see alphabet, no numbers. Last name, you are expected to see alphabet, no numbers, and age, you are expected to see whole numbers. So what if I do like this? Does this make sense? Hello, guys. No. So if you see a data set like this, what do you do? What would you do?
We will have to rearrange.
Rearrange.
Where are we rearranging? What are we arranging to where?
We arrange the age back to the number side, then the Okeme back to the last name.
So we'll do something like this. Does that make sense? Now, coming back to SQL. In SQL, anything you are building has to be deliberate. Unfortunately, unlike Microsoft Excel, it is not that it's not so friendly. You understand? You have a user interface, but you still have to write codes because SQL has commands. Anytime you do anything, you have to be very, very, very deliberate about anything you do. So if you create a table, so the first thing you need to do is create a database like your workbook, and you have to give the database a name. So I'll say database underscore name. The second thing you need to also do is to create a table, and you give it a table name. Then you have to specify what type of data are in that table. So for instance, we'll say serial numbers, or we'll just say S/N, for instance, and you have to mention the type of data. So you will say column name, then data type. If you want to add more column, all you just need to do is just to say comma, then you would just easily go to the next, and you say column name 1, like that. Then if you want, you can keep them in the same space, it doesn't really matter. So you have to be very, very deliberate. So column name 2, like that, and at the end of it, you have to, any syntax you write, always end it, or any command you tell SQL, to do, always end it with a semicolon. Is really important. So you create a database, you give it a name, you create a table, you give it a name, and specify the type of columns that are inside that particular table with their data types, which is why I said it's not so friendly. That reminds me, let me see if I can still upload your content before we continue. Just give me a moment. Let me I think I'm going to pause and continue. Our SQL workbench, right? By the time you open it, you see a local instance. This is your server. So you can see the local instance, mySQL 80. My username is Ruth, and this is like the location of where the server is located. So if I click on it, it's going to ask me for an authentication, I think. You enter your password. Remember your root password that you entered when you are trying to install it, which is why I said enter something that you can remember. So if you don't want to do it again, you can just click on save password invoked, but I don't want to do that. But you can if you are lazy. But the problem is my password is something I know. I use it every time anytime I'm using SQL, so I already know it. But if you want, you can click on save password invoked so that you don't have to repeat this process every time you come here. I don't want it.
What if you have forgotten our password?
That one now is your own problem. I don't know what to do with you. I really don't know what to do with you. So it's going to pop up your navigation. So as you can see, I'm having this is literally the interface. You can see here query one. This query is where you write your syntax, your command, do this, do that. Unfortunately, it's more technical compared to Microsoft Excel. Aside the fact that you write formula, you also give it instructions. The instructions is English-like, but it doesn't accept every instruction. It is built upon a particular set of instructions, but you still write your instructions in English. The instructions are what you call syntax or query, as the case may be. Under the left hand side, you see your navigator. This is your schema. Administration here, you come to schema. This is where your databases are. All of these things you see are databases that you see them. SMS, SYS. Now, you see this little SQL addition here. If you want, you can just click this place on this particular icon and it disappears. And yeah. Now, this is your output. Any query you write, you will see the action here. Is it successful? Is not successful? What is the problem? You always see it here. So this is like your diagnostic tool. This this output here. Now, the first thing I said, you already have your server. And you want to actually create a schema for it or a database for it, a schema or a database. The first thing I want to do is, which database should we create? Somebody can give us a name so that would. Let's say we want to create attendance database. Always write your syntax in capital letter. So your instructions, always write them in capital letter. So the syntax we'll be dealing with are create, from, group by, I think group by, let's see, select, sorry, order by, limit, what else? So basically, these are the syntax we're actually using. And there's database, there's table, there's table. So you don't need to memorize it, but these are basically what SQL is built upon. Now, I want to create a database. I'll say create database. Like literally you type database, then you give the database a name. So I'll just give the name attendance. Or let's just say school. Maybe because in it we have student attendance. Now, you just highlight your code, highlight it literally. So you click and hold your left mouse button, and you see this like a thunder strike here. You just click on it and it executes. Once it executes, you can see under the output it says create database school, one role affected. So anytime you see a green check with a white check here, can you guys see that? Confirm if you can see that. Can you guys see this green check here? It means that you have created your database, and anytime you create your database, you are supposed to see it here. Now, the name of my database is school, but I'm not seeing it here. What do I do? On top of this schema, you see something like an arrow that is moving um, in a clockwise direction. You just click on it, and it automatically refresh. So this is a refresh, or you can right click here and refresh all if you want. Now you can see I've created my school. Now if I click on this arrow button that is looking right, it will drop down. If I click on it, it will show me I have table, I have views. So this table now is what we want to start creating. Now I can create a table by saying, the first thing I will now do is I have many databases here. I have how many databases? I have school, SMS, and sys. Now you have to tell mySQL specifically that this is database you want to use. You now say use, and you don't need to say database. You just say use school, semicolon, highlight it, then click on this thunder looking button here. It will execute your function. Now that I've asked it to use school, you can see that my school immediately became like bold, right? Can you guys see it? My school immediately became bold. You guys can see that, right? If I want to change the database, all I just need to say use, and I will now say another database, and I'll just highlight and shift enter or a control enter, and you can see that now the SMS is the one that is highlighted bold. So it just shows you like your Microsoft Excel, where you click on this particular cell. I told you that this is what they call the active cell, right? That's the same thing with or is similar to when you choose a database that you want to use. Now we don't want to use it. We actually want to use school. We are just going to highlight and click on school. Then what next are we going to do? We're actually going to create a table, and let's just say the table will say student. So we want to create a table. We say create table, and we'll give it what? Table name. Create table, then table name, we'll call it student, or student information, or student info. Then bracket open, bracket close, semicolon. Now inside this bracket open, bracket close, like we did in our Microsoft Word, we'll create the column name, the data type, column name, data type, comma, like that. So we want to say serial number, we'll just say, let's just say NO, number, right? What data type? Integer. Now what I want to do is also to say auto increment. What auto increment will do in MySQL is going to increase it from 1, 2, 3. I don't really need to be entering 1, 2, 3 again. You understand? It's already automatic. Again, I think I'll just say capital N O. Or let me just say ID. The next thing is I'm going to create. So I'm trying to mimic this table. So first name, last name, age. My first name. Oh, that reminds me. I forgot to tell you guys the data types that we have in data types most used that I can remember in SQL. Let me just say SQL data types. So, like I mentioned earlier, we have integer, known as int, or you can say integer. We have float, we have decimal. It's the same thing. Float and decimal is the same thing, but it has like a memory storage thing. So we have variable character. In variable character, you always put the number of characters. What variable character means is variable, something that changes. Then character, it can be alphabet, it can be numeric, it can be a symbol. You can combine them together. Then you have text. You have date. You also have date time. Okay, so let me just put them as the same. This thing. You have date. You have date time. These are different data types. So our first name will be not text but variable character. Mind you, SQL generally doesn't like white space. So here it's not like you cannot use white space between first and name. There's a space here. Excel allows it, but SQL don't really like it, or it's not preferable. It's not like you can't use it, but it's not preferable. So if I want to give write first name and I don't want to make it look weird like this, I can write it first name, or I can say first underscore name. Anyone is fine. If you want to write first name, you can actually write first name if you want to, or you just need to say it's first space name. And anytime you want to call this particular value, you always have to put the inverted comma, and it's not really comfortable every time. So you can just say first name, first underscore name, and the data type. We are going to say variable character. The reason is because it's most preferred. Now, number of characters. What is the highest number of characters a name can go? Let's just say you can't have more than 50 characters, assuming. Comma, then our last name. I'll just copy this because I'm too lazy. I'll just change this to last. And the last thing I'm going to do is to say age. And age, I'll just pay integer. And when I'm done, this is it. Now I'm going to highlight from where the semicolon is to the create, highlight everything and click on execute. So what do we have here? Now under the output, it said create student name, student info, ID, this. It now said incorrect table definition. There can be only one auto column and it must be defined as a key. Okay, good. Now it's saying that this auto increment is supposed to take a key. So there's what they call primary key. What primary key is a unique representation of every line of data you actually enter in your table. Is a unique that it is used to identify that particular role of data used to data entry you do, and it can only appear just once. So what that is called, that unique identifier, that is only you can only find in a particular role once. For instance, if I come here and say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, is it not weird for me to put under serial number? I'll now put 1 here again. Is it not weird? Is it not? Doesn't it look funny? Can you guys hear me? Don't you think it looks funny if I now put 1 here again? So ordinarily, if I put 1, 2, 2, 3, 4, the next thing is supposed to be 5. Then like that, right? So this one that you are seeing, it ordinarily, it just makes sense to appear just once, and it will not appear again. So you see this thing that appears just one, and is on after it there's first name, but after it there's Khadija, there's Sanusi, there's this. It means that this one that has this data, you will most likely not see this particular data again. Neither will you see this one ever again. You see this one here is a unique identifier. In SQL, is called primary key. It is unique and it for that role, and it will never change. Do you understand? So it's telling me that I need to make sure that it's a key, a defined key, and in this case primary key. So I'm just supposed to say integer after data type. I will say primary key, and I'm going to highlight again and click on run. Now you see, immediately when I put the primary key, before I didn't put the primary key, it was giving me a star that there was an error. But once I specify that this is a primary key, it already created my table for me. Now under the school, under table, I can't see anything. All I just need to do is just right click and say refresh all, or you click on this icon, refresh all. You see, when by the time I do, there's an arrow by beside the table, right? But I click down, you can see student info. I'll go to, I can't see anything, or I see columns. You can see my column names: ID, first name, last name, age. Indices, I have primary key here. And what is the primary key? The ID column. Now, how do I view my table? To view table, so I'm going to say to create table, create a table. I'll say control / yeah, control Z. I'll say control / or you can say dash. Oops. Oh, my PC is low. I forgot that I did not put it on charge. That's interesting. So this is a create database. I'll say create a database. So I'm putting what they call a comment, a database. You just put hyphen, then space. I'll now say activate or use a specific database. And it's very important that you add comments anytime you're writing syntax. Even if we are fortunate to do Python, always comment is good so that the other person who is seeing it would understand what you are doing. Now, to view our table, to view our student table that we have created, what do we need to do? We'll say select star. What star means is all the columns from what table? From a table name. So from table name called student underscore info and semicolon. Select everything, highlight everything, then execute. You can see it has already clicked on the check mark, and you can see it has shown us our first table. And can you guys see our first table? So you can see our table with ID. Nothing is here yet. So in order for us to do any data entry now, so to enter, I will just type to enter, or let's say to enter data inside our student underscore info table. We'll say insert into table. I think it's insert into table. Then we'll name student name. That's the student info. That's the table name, I think. Or is insert into. Okay, I think it's insert into student name. Sorry, please. I can't remember, but when I execute it, it will give me an error or not. So, what am I entering? I don't need to enter ID. I'll say first name, last name, first underscore name, last name, then age. Then I'll now say values. Sorry, please. Okay. Then what values am I entering? Better still, I can do it like this. I think it's comma. I'm not sure. Then I will now say Jessica. Jessica. Sorry if I spell your name wrongly. Jessica, comma. Let me see. So I don't know how to. I don't know how to. I don't know how to pronounce name. We say we are 70 years, right? Then I think I'm done. I'll just highlight everything. So this Jessica will be the first name, last name, and Jessica, what's the other name? Call the name out for me. Let me hear. I'm embarrassed to make mistake.
Normal.
Sorry?
Normal.
Inoma, okay. So that will be your last name, the age is 70 because you look 70. I'm looking for Jessica Straw with this is it cold or hot afternoon in your place there? So I'm just going to click on execute. Oh, it executed. That's interesting. So you can see that it has inserted into student name and it clicked on check this values this. Now if I want to view my table, I really don't need to type it again because I've already done it here, and I'll now highlight and click execute. And you now see that it has entered it, and you can see because I said auto increment, which is why we just put 1 for me there. I don't need to enter it again. Does that make sense? So now I want to enter for both Khadija and Abraham. I want to enter multiple entries. Now, like I said, I don't need to repeat the process again. What I can then do is to say Khadija, let me put capital letter, or let me put small letter, Khadija, oh, sorry, then Sanusi, then I said Khadija is 45. Then I want to enter Abraham, I'll just say comma, and I'll enter another bracket. Now if you want, you can make it nice like this, if you so want. Then I would say Abraham, comma, oh, I didn't spell it well. Then I say Abraham is 10 years old. Yeah. Now I will just highlight and run. Execute. And you can see it has executed well. Insert into table student underscore info, first name, last name. By the time I click on, I select my view table. and click on execute, you can see that it has added the information I inserted here. So I made a mistake while trying to enter Khadija's name, and I used a small k instead of a capital K. Let's assume that I actually want to correct this. What I can do is to say basically what I want to do is to update the column. So I will just say update student underscore info. I would say set first name and first underscore name equal to Khadija in capital letter. That starts with capital letter. Maybe I can even say H, and I will say where ID. Mind you, the ID for Khadija is 2. I can say where ID equal 2, and I would highlight my syntax and click on execute. And you can see it showed the green check mark. It means that everything is fine. If I go back to my view table, I'll highlight everything, execute. And you can see that Khadija is now starts with a capital letter, and we have an additional H. So one of the reasons why these unique values, the primary key is really important is assuming I actually want to, so from here you can see first name, last name, they are different. So let's say I want to actually change completely the first name, last name of Khadija, for instance, or let's say where ID is equal to 1, I would say I'm going to put my name, comma, last name, right, and comma, I would say age equal 10, for instance, or let me just leave out the age, and I update, I run it. By the time I go to my view table and execute, you can see that this is I've already updated from Jessica to this particular name, and I'm going to do that for where ID is equal to 2. Now if I update and I view my table, I highlight the syntax of viewing my table and I execute, you can see that we have multiple names, and that is not really a good thing, especially anytime you are trying to do a particular update. It's really important that, so in this particular case, I can't use first name, for instance. It's not going to work. Neither can I use last name. It's not going to work because both the first name for ID equal 1 and ID is equal 2 is the same thing. So I can actually use it. This just shows how important your primary keys are. They are really important, specifically in SQL, and they help to easily change and update or even delete entries easily without giving you a lot of headache. So imagine I even added like age for ID equal 1, I will say age equal 45. Okay, sorry, equal 45, where ID is 1. I highlight everything, execute, highlight my view table syntax, execute it. You can now see that everything is, all the information here is the same thing aside the ID equal 1 or 2, and that can be a very bad thing if you don't have your primary key. It can be very detrimental because how, let's assume there's no ID, how then do you want to effect any change? If you want to do any kind of change, it will be very difficult. So which is why, like I mentioned earlier, your primary key is really important, specifically in SQL. So I can then change, I can go back to my update table and change the information back Jessica and the last name in normal, age 75, where ID equal 1, and execute this, and it works fine. I need to do is to highlight my view table syntax, execute it, and you can see I've changed the information back. I can do the same thing for Khadija. This time around, I'm not going to put an age at the end. Sanusi, age 45, where ID equal 2, which was where it was before. Highlight the syntax, execute. It works perfectly with the check mark being green. Go back to my view table syntax, highlight everything, execute, and now you can then see this. Now, if I want to add an additional information, all I just need to do is just to go back to my insert into table. I will now enter the third information, Chikoliu, and age equal 10. You can enter any other number, it's fine. Age equal 10. Highlight my insert into table syntax, execute. It's worked successfully. Go to my view table, highlight the syntax, and execute. Now you can see that my name is actually there. So the beautiful thing with primary keys is it will always give me a primary key for every individual entry, and this primary key is mostly unique. So it's a very important um, attribute, specifically in SQL.